Howdy, welcome back. So today's video is going to be a whole lot longer than normal, very in-depth and a whole lot of talking. So something more of a builder-specific video, a little bit less entertaining for the masses. But if you're into that, feel free to stick around. I've included chapters to make it easy to bounce around, find the subject that you're interested in. And yeah, so with that said, let's get to it. So first thing I wanted to get to, which you're probably going to see later on in this video, is we have determined the basic color that we're going to be painting the interior of the plane. So anyways, what I'm getting to is we're going to have fancy high-end Rust-Oleum spray paint. So I went through a couple of different, I don't have them out, I went through a couple of different cans of spray paint, trying different colors, and we have settled on matte hammered spray paint. We're just going to do the basic self-etch rattle can primer, followed by this matte black hammered finish from Rust-Oleum. It does seem pretty hardy. You'll see on the backside a couple of our samples we went through. This was flat black, very unforgiving, especially in this hot garage. It's 104 in this garage right now. It would like dry by the time I was coming back for another pass. Very unforgiving. This gloss black, it just looked a little cheapy to me. I ended up spray painting clear matte over the top of it, seeing how that would look. Summed up, came to the conclusion that this is the winning ticket. So it seems pretty hardy. Should work well. So you're going to see that going forward. So the other thing you're going to see is we did choose to do an air conditioner. With our build, it's the cool thing about experimental. You get to make your build however fits your mission. So our mission, being in Phoenix and with it outside 109 degrees, 104 in the garage here, our mission, I would like to be able to fly these 3 or 4 months of the year that everyone just kind of either doesn't fly or flies very early in the morning when it's a brisk 90 degrees. So it'll open up a lot of the year. I know it'll work really well for Amanda. I've never flown in an airplane with air conditioning other than commercial. But Amanda, it was critical for her, which it's going to work out really well. With our mission being family hauler, I don't want to have Wyatt in the back seat sweating, and I can handle the hot cockpit, but I think you add other people, other passengers to the picture, and it can get hot and get uncomfortable for everyone. So if the passengers aren't comfortable, I'm not going to be comfortable. So air conditioner is where it's at for us. So you'll see in the background here, I did choose to do just the bulkhead only. My understanding is the bulkhead only should be a little bit more efficient at overall cooling for the plane. There's a guy, I think in Australia, who did a test of overhead console versus just bulkhead flood. And he found that it was more efficient having air just pumping through. There's a trade-off, which I talked with Bill over at Airflow Systems about, which is your back passengers may end up getting a little bit cold because the air is going to be coming up right along their heads. The idea is that it should hopefully travel along the top of the cabin top, kind of bounce back at the windshield and circulate that way. So back passengers will likely have a little more cold air on the backs of their heads. So there's much worse problems to have in Phoenix, especially when you're taking off on a 110-degree day. It'd be a real bummer to have to wear a beanie in the back of the plane. So that's totally fine for us. Bulkhead delivery, AC system, not doing overhead console, which is very contrary to to all the other builders out there. It seems like most builders end up doing the overhead console. So the decision there to not do an overhead console came down to, okay, what makes people do an overhead console? Well, number one, they look cool. But going back to utilitarian, we're just worried about what fits our mission. So number two, it's great for air delivery. Well, we're going to have an AC system that's pumping cold air from the back bulkhead. We're not going to need overhead fresh air. Would it be nice? Sure. But is it required for our mission? No. The third thing that I viewed an overhead console as providing is overhead lights. So night flying, not part of our mission currently. I know one will likely do some night flying, but it's not high on the priority list of how we plan on utilizing our RV-10. So all these different things in mind, I thought the only other thing I could possibly want overhead lighting for is, like, say maybe we're at AirVenture in the future, and being able to turn on the light would be awesome to look around inside, whether it's loading in luggage, loading up people in the back. that'd be great, but you could also use a flashlight or use a headlamp. So it's a nice to have. There's a lot of nice to haves here. Where, kind of going back to the AC was really a need to have. We need to have that to fly comfortably. In my opinion, we need to have that to fly comfortably, especially down low in Phoenix. Now that all may change. I know I've said things in the past where I've said something and then I end up changing my mind later on, but as of right now, as of June, whatever today is, June 28th, we're not doing overhead console, just doing the rear bulkhead delivery AC system. Today, jumping into the scoop on the air conditioning system. It's kind of hard to record. What I'm finding is with the standard Vans plans, when I'm knocking out certain sections of the plane, when it's pretty straightforward, it's really easy to record because I can think to myself, okay, I know I'm going to drill out this section or do these rivets real quick. I can already kind of think ahead of how I'm going to do things, work with the camera. When you're doing the one-off thing, so for instance, the air conditioning system, it does have good instructions, but there's still like the amount of head scratching time. I'm probably at least 10 hours in so far, and I've not drilled a single hole in the plane. So just thinking through things, because there's a lot that can go wrong when you're punching a whole bunch of holes in the bottom of your fuselage. So anywho, I'm gonna catch you up to speed real quick on what I've done so far, how I'm planning on doing this solo, and how I'm planning on not screwing things up. So we're gonna see if it ends up working out, but I will show you real quick. Let me get underneath the plane, and I'll flip this camera around. And I know this camera doesn't have the greatest wide-angle view, so if you get motion sickness, click away, go find another video. But so far what I have is the scoop there on that jack. I don't have a whole bunch of force upwards on it. I literally just lifted it just to where it touched the bottom skin there, the belly. But what I've done is I've went ahead and marked certain flange locations. So I know that I have a bulkhead right here that runs all the way across, which it says to avoid. So you'll see that red line, I kind of drew that where the rivets were earlier, and then I put a really fat airing on the side of caution tolerance built in here. So you'll see that flange is actually not that wide. It's maybe half the width of that, those blue lines there, but that helped to kind of identify where things are and how I can basically prevent myself from screwing up. So I did that all the way around. So you'll see down that one there, each of those rivet heads lining up with those red marks. And then again, giving my stupid Austin tolerance blue marks on each side. That helped me label out or lay out my hole pattern. So you'll see I'm gonna end up drilling a hole there, drilling a hole there, all the way down and around. So I've already gone ahead and got center line on the actual belly of the fuselage itself. So I think what I'm going to do is drill a hole on each end, tack it in, make sure I'm happy with where it's at, and then go from there. Alrighty, the match drilling is done. My little fancy trick there with those lines of trying to estimate where flanges were, where the no-go zones were, it worked really well. I did not hit any of the flanges. You'll see where I knew I was getting nice and close. There's a good example right there, but I'm still a good quarter-inch away from that rib there. So I'm happy with it. All of them worked out well, but want to do a quick check-in on the kit overall. So first impressions, Bill Airflow Systems has been awesome to work with. This is not sponsored by him. I did not get a discount for including this product on here. This is just my honest opinion, honest evaluation of this kit. But I've been really happy with it. I had a couple of parts from inventory that were missing. Bill quickly had them shipped out. They actually arrived today. They're somewhere in a box somewhere over there. But overall, really happy. One area where I wish I could have done the work myself is this area back here with nut plates. I really wish these weren't already installed. I think they used the wrong pop rivets is my only guess here. You'll see they are very, very loose, which this should be fine, assuming I'm not taking this on and off multiple times and putting stress on that fiberglass. But what I think happened is these don't appear to be pop rivets that are designed to be flush pop rivets. So it's just countersunk very, very deep to the point where if I hold this up, maybe you can see it on camera, you can possibly see sunlight or see light through it, where light is coming around. That fiberglass got really, really thin, and the result is very loose nut plates. I was able to install the little fairing piece, whatever this part is called. It installed well, and obviously the nut plates didn't break loose or anything, but it's a little, it feels a little sketchy. Again, this should not be an issue, assuming I'm not taking this on and off multiple times, but it is one area where I honestly wish, instead of using those rivets, if I could have just done the nut plates myself. This one over here, I did myself on that corner. That gold one is mine, because they actually, instead of over countersinking this one, it wasn't countersunk at all. It was actually fully proud, sticking on top, and I noticed when I had this guy over, that the corner there was lifted really, really high off. So that's one area so far, but next step involves putting rivnuts in location on all of these holes, which you probably can't see on camera, and getting that scoop mounted. So we'll keep you posted. There's a notch right there, which it may not get in focus, but you may have to just believe me. But there's a small notch on each of these rivnuts here. So I saw online someone mentioned using a jeweler's file to kind of get into this hole and carve out room for that notch. I am living in 2024, and I have this handy dandy tungsten carbide bit, which works really well. Just have to be really careful and go a little bit at a time, and then check it, see if it works, go a little bit more. Anyways, it works really well. Alrighty, I will do one on camera real quick for you. It may be too far away for you to see anything, but hey. A little bit more. That should do it. There it is, nice and flat. I'll get a quick shot up close for the camera. I'm not sure if it will get in frame or not, or if it's going to focus or not, but you'll see that little bit of a notch. Right, you'll see a notch right there on the end, and hopefully that's focusing, but that receives this little notch on this guy really well. So then from there, using I have it on my Rivnut polar squeezer deal, but also adding some of this Loctite on there as well. It calls for it in the plans. This stuff supposedly cures on metal-to-metal contact under pressure with no oxygen. So getting a nice little layer of it and setting it and then wiping off the remainder. This Harbor Freight Polar is honestly junk, or not junk, but it's working, but I have to kind of make it work. In one squeeze, it's really not setting it enough. So what I've found, kind of the backwards way of doing things here, which probably is not correct at all, and again, these are not how-to videos, this is just some redneck in a garage trying to find a way to make Harbor Freight tools work on his airplane. But the way I have found to make it work is to take this little knurled piece up front here and just back it out a couple of turns, which in turn kind of brings that towards the surface, and then it can pull off of that one more pull. So I will do that right now. It's too tight. I'm cramping. There it is. And supposedly this the remaining Loctite on the outside won't dry if it's exposed to oxygen, so it's just, might as well just wipe it off, not leave it, it's not going to dry. So anyways, I have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more to go, and we'll be done.
Alrighty, we are done. I'm gonna have a very sore neck tomorrow. I'm gonna call it quits for now. Tomorrow we'll start work on the actual scoop itself, but pleased with how these went in there. So yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. I am happy with how that turned out. I love the color. We went through quite a few different color choices, and this is the one that Amanda settled on. The one I was going to choose actually would not have looked nearly as nice or nearly as forgiving as this, but it looks really, really nice. I am happy with it. So kind of thinking ahead here, I've already gone ahead and prepped the floorboard, whatever you want to call them, for the rear seats. So I'll go ahead and get those in there. There's the right one there, and then I'll have the left one over here. But the reason why I was holding off on putting those in was because I needed to have all of these Rivnuts for the AC scoop. But now that's in, I'm pretty certain I can go ahead and get these installed, which then allow me to install, I think, the flap setup. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I will throw these in there. You'll see me struggle. It is a very tight fit, getting it up and over to that back flange there. It's a tight fit. So you'll watch me struggle, but we'll get those in and then we'll get them riveted and see where we can go from there. Alrighty, welcome back. Back from Oshkosh, back to this project. It's always amazing when you leave a project for a couple of days, but in this case, I haven't touched this in probably, I don't know, 2 weeks now, maybe 2.5 weeks. But when you leave it in a certain state, and you come back and you start wondering, what the heck was I doing and what was next? So that's kind of what I've figured out so far here. Spent the last 20 minutes or so kind of backtracking what I was doing. So the hoses look like a mess, but they are all planned for. They're in here roughly in where they should rest. You'll notice I have holes punched through the side of the seat pan here, which is where those will come through. So all these will actually have to be pulled out in order to release them through. But this is how I'm gonna lay it out. I have 2 corrugated pipes come along the right side here. I was gonna try to fit one more somewhere, but I don't want to overstuff this side. I already have 2 big AC hoses going on. So I'm gonna leave it at 2 conduits there. One of them kind of, they both zip down and kind of follow along out to that back end over there. So that's how this is going to stay. I'll also have 1 coax line, or whatever, RG400, whatever it's called, going over to my my right side comm antenna that's on the bottom skin. So anywho, that's the plan right now. I've already gone ahead and crimped one of these. I'm not sure if I got that on camera or not. Did that before Oshkosh, just to do a trial run with the fancy Amazon special AC crimper, and it actually turned out really well. So anyways, I'm going to knock out the other side here and we'll continue from there. So I got these guys tightened down there. These hoses are still waiting to be run through the front, but what I want to get to is, you can see that is ugly as heck. it was so hard to get in there to put that RTB down, trying to get my hands around and kind of get a nice bead all the way around it. Doesn't need to look pretty, just trying to keep the exhaust gases out, so that will work. One little area where if you're installing this in yours, really pay attention. I barely clear that push rod there. It just maybe like a 1/16 of an inch clearance, to where if I did not have that nut clocked straight in this orientation, and maybe I had it in that orientation, it would rub on that push rod there. So it is very, very close. I don't know if it has to do with these Z fittings or whatever these are called. Maybe mine had a little bit extra length in it, or not enough length. It kind of goes down and hooks through either left or right, I forget which way it goes. But where it comes up, it is dang close. So if I was doing this again, I would take that into account, making sure that it's going to clear that push rod. And anywho, I think if it was to touch it, I could probably get some other Z fittings made and maybe have it go that way more, but it clears it. It is fine, but just something to take a look at, future people who are also doing this system. Here you also see this contraption, which came together. This is version, I don't know, 2 or 3, working with Justin Poet. He's also building a 10, also doing an AC system. We messaged back and forth a lot, trying to come up with a way to clear our rudder cables, and this is what we came up with. So his build has a similar thing. I added extra lightning holes, a whole lot of extra horsepowers for this plane. So I will be faster, or this build will be faster than Justin Poet. So sorry, man, but no, that's all that's doing is keeping those guys, number one, up away from that push rod there, and then also keeping them together with all those holes that I drilled inside of it to keep it away from the rudder cables. So I'm happy so far. From here, I got to run it down the sidewall. This is pretty involved. It's funny, you start the project thinking, oh, this should be a pretty quick thing to do, this whole AC thing. A lot of weird planning that you have to do to account for all these sorts of things. So I'm gonna call it quits for now. I have all my conduit run. I guess lessons learned. If I was to do this again, I probably wouldn't get so punch crazy. I ended up with one extra hole there in that seat rib, which will be fine. But you'll see, instead of I originally planned on kind of having them all follow in parallel with each other, so one into there, and then the other over there. But I don't know why I did that. I ended up just actually going into one, because this is nice. I can keep them in the same hole. Have this little caterpillar grommet there, but I can secure them nicely right over here to the step. So that's the plan there. So everything is laid out. I'm gonna look over it several more times before actually putting the seat in, because once the seat's in and riveted down, I'm committed. But you'll see I have the holes planned out for it. Each of those holes there, that's where the conduit's gonna come up and through, similar to what happened on that side over there. So I'm happy. Also gonna do a couple of other, I have those little plastic standoff zip tie mounts. I'm gonna throw a couple over there with those 2 conduit runs. That one over there, I have a little standoff mount underneath that's drying. That's already glued down, but those are kind of snaked together along with the AC hose into that run over there. Other than that, I did add one extra one, which is here, which is a worst case scenario use kind of a thing. I know a lot of people run their wires up here. I think then you have to snake it to the side and get past the flap. I don't anticipate honestly having to use all of these, but just figured didn't hurt, add one extra one. So that is my one extra future-proof one, where I know that this will end up leading back there next to the tunnel. So I will stare at this for a little bit while longer, and then commit to getting this stuff riveted down and get the back baggage floor in, and we'll actually start building an airplane again, which will be fun. So we'll get to it. Getting back to things here. It is a warm Phoenix day. Sound's gonna be garbage, so I apologize for that. But exciting thing, while we were out, it's either Oshkosh or out visiting family in California. Anyways, we got a nice package in the mail, which is the Andair fuel valve. So really, really nice fuel valve. The top portion is inside the house. I will show you that later. But for now, the most critical part is I kind of wanted to get the fuel system buttoned up here, because you'll notice I have all my fuel lines in, basically have it all ready. I already have it terminated at the firewall somewhere back in there. It all is ready other than the fuel valve itself. So since I am veering from plans, not using the stock valve, you'll see I'm gonna have to make some modifications to this bracket here. You can kind of ignore a lot of this Sharpie work. Just different thoughts were going through my head the other night trying to plan out how I wanted to do this. A common method that I see people do is they end up cutting it. So cutting maybe there, and then riveting on either 3 rivets or find some pattern that works around these existing holes and rivet in their bracket in there and basically get rid of this whole middle piece and instead have this piece here, of course cleaned up and not all square like this or rectangular like this. But my plan, which I think may work, is following these black lines here. So I think what I'll do is I'll get a tungsten bit on my Dremel tool and kind of round out this hole here, that hole here, and this area here. And what that may allow me to do, which I have seen this elsewhere, I did not come up with this idea, I saw it on someone else's build log or some photo that came in my Google search results. But what it may allow me to do is mount this on bottom, make room for these screws, and what I think that'll allow me to do is I can then leave this whole top structure, the existing van structure, and kind of pick and choose where I want my rivets to lie and go from there and kind of just stay away from the footprint of the main valve. We'll see if I can make this work. My legs get so sore leaning over the edge here, so I'm not gonna have the greatest of camera angles at times here. What I'm working on right now, or getting ready to work on, is the back baggage bulkhead area with the AC system. So these flat pieces of aluminum are replacing the corrugated Vans version. Probably see that welded aluminum frame. That actually provides added stiffness in this area, which is why I guess they can get away with going non-corrugated. But they don't come with holes other than these holes up top here. No other holes are on there, so I'm gonna go ahead and get them match drilled to the Vans version, and then from there I think I have to cleco on the top skin, and then I can then match drill from those new panels onto these bulkheads here. So we're gonna get to it. First real gotcha on the AC system install. Everything has been pretty straightforward. The plans, like for instance, the plans get a little bit iffy in some areas where it's not totally clear, but by this point in the build, you can kind of get an idea of what you're supposed to do. Good example on the plans, it actually only had 2 nut plates here. For some reason, the kit that I received had this whole bracket for 4 nut plates. So outer holes on it as well were undersized. I'm not sure why, but all I knew is I had pre-punched holes for 4 nut plates. I figured upsize the outer ones and this is going to be super secure. So I'm not sure why I had those outer ones, but anyways, that's why I have 4 here. But the real gotcha that I wanted to get to is with these blocks here. So just following the standard plans from Vans, was wrong. You'll notice that when this is here, it interferes with that block there. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut that down. So yeah, if I was to do this again, I would look at this first before drilling holes, and I've already committed. I've already match drilled it to this aluminum here. But if I was doing this again, I'd probably put this on here, find out where my line's gonna be, cut it, and then center it, center your holes on the new piece, because you'll see on the left one, which I've already cut down, my edge distance is minimal. So I'll show you on the left one why I'm fine with it, why I'm gonna leave it as is. But the idea that I have is once this is on here, that wear block really has nowhere to go. It's gonna be captured with the angle aluminum on the bottom, captured with this piece up top. I don't think that wear block's gonna have any kind of serious torque on it, but if it did, it's kind of captured between two pieces, so I'm gonna leave it. But if I was doing this again, I would definitely not have edge distance like that. I've committed at this point. You'll see the holes there. So anywho, that's my little gotcha. I'm gonna continue on forward here. I have to trim down the right one. Get that one trimmed down. So the measurement here from this skin to the forward-most portion of this piece here is 2.5 inches. I left, I don't know, maybe a 32nd of an inch, maybe less. But did modify the measurement. It called for, gosh, I think it was like 3.2 inches, which was really far aft. When I put everything in here temporarily just to see how things looked, I didn't see a reason why it would need to be that far back, and actually I also discovered that it would probably interfere with a weld that's on the front portion of the bracketry here, of the mount. So adjust it forward, which I did see on the wiki notes. Someone else mentioned, I think that was the older shelf. It looked like a fiberglass version, not the updated aluminum version. But for them on that one, they also had a note for that measurement being off, needing to be actually further forward. Alrighty, first little modification that I have on this, I'm gonna call it the frame. I don't know what this is called, but the AC frame that sits behind the back baggage bulkhead. I saw quite a few different builder logs mention this being really close to the seatbelt cable. So that's why I wanted to test fit this and leave the cable in here while I'm getting this sorted out. But sure enough, it was going to be very, very close to the cable, pretty much touching it. So what I did do is this section here where this little bracket is, I actually shifted it towards the left side by probably, I don't know, a little bit under 1/8 of an inch. And what that has done is it's gained me 1/8 of an inch on the other side. So this part here, I'm not sure how high it's mounted, but you'll see the predicament that we're in. Even if it's up here, it could rattle on the side of it. So I think if I install this up high, I'll still probably end up putting some kind of a wear tape on the side, or maybe I'll fabricate something that I can kind of ring clamp around that has a little shield on the back side, just for it when it does rattle on it. Anywho, before I did this, when it was the standard configuration where this bracket was in the proper location, it was pretty much touching it the whole time. So I did make that change. I'll show you real quick on the bottom what that looks like. And again, I don't know how high on here that mounts, if that's going to mount down low underneath it. If so, the cable would drop down when there's no tension on it. So regardless, it's always going to be something to consider. But on the bottom, you'll see I have a different hole pattern that I laid out to make room for this. So on the bottom, you'll see I ignored one of the pre-punch holes, which was that one, and I instead added a new hole to the side of it, which got me extra room. And then I took a little tungsten carving disc, whatever you want to call it, a tungsten bit on a Dremel, and Dremeled out this portion here to allow it to get a little bit more towards the edge. And then also while I was at it, because I was going to be doing that and this whole thing was going to shift about, I don't know, a little bit under 1/8 of an inch, so to the side, I went ahead and carved out this other little relief notch, which I believe is where one of the hoses goes down, so I gave it another 1/8 of an inch to make clearance there. So hopefully this all works, but that's my solution here. Again, it's already still going to be super close to it, so if you're building one of these with a current kit with this aluminum frame deal and you found a way to do this, please comment down below, because I don't know what I'm doing. And honestly, this may change in the future as it starts to get assembled. So if you've worked with this, please let me know, but that's my plan for now. All right, the camera memory card filled up, so we missed a lot, but I'll catch you up to speed. All I did was I drilled these holes here. So I used a right angle drill attachment, came up from the bottom to match drill the sides where the frame rested on top of here. Also went ahead and marked where to drill on the frame itself for the little stand points where the actual deal stands. It's late at night, I can't think straight. But match drilled, or at least marked it, and then took this over to the drill press and knocked those out on the drill press. So other than that, I drew on the back side with a Sharpie. When this was in location, all this was in there. And now I have this fancy little template that came with the kit. It is in the wrong orientation for what I want to do here, but I can kind of see through it just enough to get by. My plan though is to, I kind of trimmed it out to the final size on the outside. My plan is to rest this on here, get it nice and centered between those Sharpie lines, get it taped down, and then I should be able to see through and mark holes where I need to drill holes, or corners where I need to cut out the inside for this intake here. So that's the plan right now. I have a fresh memory card in here, so we'll jump to a fun little time lapse. Trying to decide if I want to go off of my lines that I just drew on the inside here, or if I want to go off of the template, because it is slightly different. This, being what I think is a 3D printed part, has a lot of character to it. I did have to elongate the bottom holes to get it to actually match up with where it was being mounted to. I had to elongate these down because those weren't lining up. I can kind of see it kind of walks all over. It's not a perfect part, and it should be no issue once it's installed. I just want to make sure I get it installed nice and straight. So I'm going to think about this more and make some permanent lines where I want to cut, and we'll go from there. The grill is on. Really happy with how it turned out. It is nice and square, perfectly centered. Couldn't be happier. So I'm not sure how much video you've seen up until this point or what all this video encompasses. I know I was recording prior to Oshkosh, filled up one whole memory card. This is memory card number 2. So this may be a whole lot of video that you've already seen. So I'm going to call it quits here. And then next video, we'll be jumping into probably a little bit more of the AC system install, but then also getting into the fun stuff. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Adios.